What's up, everybody? Big Hurt 916 Muscle Up. You know how we do it over here. This is my Nothing But Car channel where I talk about cars, and more cars. And this is episode 8, Car Talk. And I got my man Geoff Brown with me today. We had a little car show that we were pitching called Exhaust Note, and we worked on a bunch of other projects. He's a car fanatic like myself. So I figure, hey, why not get him on the show and, let's chop it up about cars. So Geoff, man, what is your intro into the car universe and how'd you become a car head?
Wow. First, let me say thank you, man, for having me on.
Hold on 1 sec. Adjust your camera a little bit because it looked like you're closer again. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First, thank you, man, for having me here. As you know, we share the same sickness. I got to go back to 3 years old. At 3 years old, I could tell the difference between a Ford, Chevy, and a Mopar starting up. The sound of the starter. I lived 3 blocks from my grammar school, and I got out at 2:30. Speed Racer came on at 2:30. I only missed half of the intro because I would run home just to see the Mach 5 and the other cars on the show. And from that point to when I joined the Marines and I got stationed out here in California, and California is the car capital of the world, where you can be sitting at a stoplight and depending upon which way you go will only diminish the number by a little bit of how many varied, expensive, exotic, maybe not that expensive, but just plain old cool cars you see. And I find that the car culture is inundated with 2 groups of people who like cars and people who know cars. And if you get to a place where you have a passion for it, you can't help but want to know cars. And that's exactly where I'm at. As much I can talk about the most mundane crap to go with cars for hours. You're going to have to edit this. You're going to have to stop this show because it won't be me that got somewhere to go. We can sit here and talk all night about cars.
What, thinking back as far as like car experiences, what experience can you recollect that when you had that experience, it kind of like it set it off? I know for myself, like I remember being probably 4 years old, and my grandfather had a 65 Mustang of the 3-speed, and he was driving that thing heading up to a softball game. He was still playing softball at the time, and he was shifting, and he probably wasn't going that fast, but the way he was shifting, it felt like he was in a NASCAR or something, man. I was in the passenger seat, and I thought, man, that was the greatest thing. That thing was red, and he thought he was like Willie T. Ribbs in that thing. He was mashing
all that V8 torque.
Yeah, he was bashing it, because that 3-speed, you hit, the gears is kind of tall, so by the time you get the 3rd gear, you ain't doing nothing but 60, but it winds quick, and I can still think back to that time, man. So I still have a soft spot in my heart for Fords, for Ford Mustang in particular. But was there a ride that you had as a kid, or a neighbor's car, or somebody's car that you got in and you sat in that car and you're like, man, this is the shit right here?
Man, okay. There've been my Uncle Chuck had a Chrysler Imperial with the wheel on the trunk. He had a 65 Thunderbird. He had a 76 Jag, and those cars marked me so much that I have a 65 T-Bird and a 76 Jag now. I then got into the Marines, and a friend of mine's cousin had put a 327 in a TR7, the Triumph TR7, the wedge that is becoming a collector's item now. And he used to live right off of Budlong and Slauson.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at. I used to stay
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. Well, he came up and made a right on the Slauson, and we were sitting there waiting on the light to change. And he told me to put my seatbelt on. And this was in 1984. I'll never forget it. I put my seatbelt on when the light turned green, and he nailed it. And I couldn't pull my head up until he went on the clutch. And I was hooked on that car. I had to have that car. Then I had another friend that had a Datsun 510 turbo rotary. And those cars marked me so much that I wound up, I had a Triumph TR7 with a Buick Grand National motor in it. And I sold it. I had to sell it before I killed myself because it was just so ridiculously fast. The acceleration in that little car, that car weighed like maybe 2,100 pounds with me in it. And it had 400 turbo horsepower on the ground. And I didn't really have to do much to it. I had a slightly bigger intercooler, 3-inch exhaust all the way out with bigger injectors. And I didn't even have to remap the computer. I just took it out of the Grand National it was in and put it in that car and put it behind a T5. And this thing with a Jaguar in, bruh. I had a friend that had remember the Suzuki, the Gixxer, the GSXR bikes?
Mm-hmm.
He had a GSXR 1100. And we got out on the 15 one night. And we did the 3-horn beep go, rolling at 65. He jumped out on me by 3 cars, and he couldn't get away. He couldn't get away from me to about 140. And then I got out of it. And I got to 140 so fast. I was like, man, I'm going to come up on traffic one day and just be a grease spot. Somebody going to turn, somebody going to move. And it was just scary fast to me. It's been those episodes riding in. I done rode in so many fast cars and so many beautiful ones, and even cars that I wouldn't do. Like, shout out to my boy Dre, who's in a lowrider club, and I give him trash because he won't let me join with my T-Bird when I put it on air ride because hydraulics is mandatory for their club, but they got some cold rides. I wouldn't put a car on them little bitty wheels. I wouldn't do that. I don't want hydraulics, but I respect when I see it done well. I can look at this dude's car and these guys' cars and see how much money they spent. And I'm in awe of it, and I respect it, even if it's not my style of car. If I can see another person's passion in their vehicle and the attention to detail, and it's the little things. Like I told you, I'm going to tell a little bit of Hert's business right now. Hert got a monster green 928. And you was talking about it all the time. You were talking about what you were going to do to it. I seen pictures of it. And then when you got it together and you sent me a video of it, I don't know how many times I played this video over and over. It wasn't even going fast. It was pulling off slow, but the tires still had those. You had just bought the tires, and they still had the white stickers on them. And as it was moving, the white stickers was going around, and it looked so funky, man. I was like, oh, that car is flying. That car is dope, bro. Number one, a 928 is my favorite Porsche. This is my favorite Porsche. Number two, I more than likely would have done something like that to a Porsche 928 if I was building it. So hats off to you to that Porsche, man. That Porsche is cold-blooded.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I get a lot of blowback. I look at the comments on some of the Facebook groups because of the wheel arches and the wide body and the hood and all this. But at the end of the day, what makes the car culture unique is everybody can put their own touch on their car. I mean, if you like your car stock and you just like exhaust, that's cool. If you want a wide body, if you want to do like a Liberty Walk or a Strosic kit, whatever you want to do, that's what makes your car special.
Sure.
And for me, I can't really drive anything stock. I mean, my wife's car, that's probably about the stockest car I have, and that even her ML63 has a tune on it. But every car I drive, it's got to have wheels, or it's got to have a sound system. It's got to be customized, and I've been doing that ever since I got out the pen. I mean, I've had probably 50 cars since then, or probably 40, 50, but I've had a lot of cars, and every car that I kept that I drove, I had to do something to it. So, growing up, seeing guys in the neighborhood with back then I remember the mini trucks, dudes come through in the hood with the mini trucks with the beds. They had the bed on hydraulic, they have the 15, they'd be bumping. You'd be like, yeah, it'd be like a party in the street, man. They driving down the street, and I'll be like, man, one day I'm gonna get me something with some music in it, and so that was the big thing. And they had the fake cell phones in there, because a lot of dudes couldn't afford a real cell phone unless you was balling. They had the cell phones in there, and then I remember seeing the D boys come through in like 77 Cutlass on Zenith and Vogues, bumping Isley Brothers, Caravan of Love, man. I'm like, man, this is like a movie right here. Them dudes cruising down the street, slow, bumping, the rims are shining, the candy paint, white guts. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna get me something with green with candy with the white guts one day. And I got a Chevelle like that. But
Yeah. Yeah, that Chevelle is another monster.
yeah, that when I get that back, that's gonna be killing the game. But it's amazing how, to me, certain cars are like, it plays out a movie. You can think about a car you've seen in traffic, or a situation, and you're like, man, that it's like you can keep playing it over and over in your mind, that scenario, man. And that's, as men or as kids, that's what we do with cars. From Tonka toys to Hot Wheels to racetracks, radio control cars, and then when you can get a real car, dude, literally, I know dudes who would, if they could, they would just have a microwave in the garage and a bathroom. They sleep in their car.
Dude, honestly, my dream office, I want to, number one, yeah, I got to go back a little bit. Number one, let's address the people who got something to say about the way you did your car. Did you see any of the people who had something foul to say about what you did with your car? Was any of them knocking on your door when it was time to pay for the paint? When it was time to pay for the motor? If the answer is no, then they don't get a vote.
Yeah,
that's your money.
Yeah,
that's your money. I get the same thing. I get the same thing with people discussing when they hear what like my Jag has a good wrench motor in it. You know the story about when I got it. I got it from a guy who said it had an engine fire when actually all it had was a carburetor fire. I replaced the carburetor, the brake reservoir, and the air cleaner. And dude, that car runs like a watch. With a Chevy motor. And I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. I'm going to do justice to it. I'm not going to half-ass it. But that's my car. That's the whole point is it's art. It's an interpretation. Like when we went to the SEMA show, I don't care what you say, Hurt, I love that burgundy Ranchero. with the gray interior. It was so funny. It's very, it is funny to see. For those of you watching this, Herc has a visceral reaction to cars he don't like, and some of them are cars that I love. I love oddball cars. I there's something about a car that beyond stock doesn't have the motor that it came with. I'm working on I also have a 64 Triumph TR4 that I want to put a 289 in with a 5-speed and downdraft throttle body injection, and something that I wanted to rev a lightened flywheel so it revs like a bike. And I want it to sound, and those and 289s do, they sound almost reminiscent of Ferrari motors when they rev high, and when you have uh multiple throttle body injection or multiple throttle body carburetors. Injection, I've never seen one with downdraft throttle bodies on it, but that's what I want to do. I could probably much easier put together a 302 and punch it out to a 347. I could probably find a 347 sitting on somebody's floor somewhere in a machine shop that the machine shop wants to sell because the project fell through. And I might, but it's not going to sound like a 289. And I want a 289 because a high rev 289 for the experience, for the sound. It only has a 289 with downdraft throttle bodies will easily make 375 horsepower to the rear wheels.
Well, that 320, that 289 kind of revs like the 327.
Yes, yes, yes. You can for a V8, you can scream it.
Yeah, because that 327 in the Chevys, they had them in the Corvettes, and those things were running.
Oh yeah, brother. So my point being is that a car is supposed to be something that you build for you. It's an extension of you. It's an extension of your taste. So I don't hold people to what I would say they ought to do. And another passion of mine. Hold on, I'll get you one. Another passion of mine is collecting small ones. This is a Datsun 510, which is a hard to find die-cast car of this size. But I had an orange 510 that had a Streetport 13B, a Mikuni side draft, a Volvo, and a Buick Grand National Turbo with a fish tank bleeder. And brother, when I tell you that thing ran so fast, I used to have to get out of it because at about 110, the fenders would start to shake. It would start trying to fly. So, because the car was never meant to go that fast.
Well, they worth some bread now. I mean, I watch a lot of Japanese YouTube channels about JDM, and like a lot of the 13B, a lot of the like the Datsun stuff, all that stuff now is coveted. And with the body kits and the different things they're doing now, those cars are really they're competing at a whole nother level because of technology.
Whole nother level, absolutely.
You could do so much with them. The rotary, it's been overlooked for a long time. I had a 79 Mazda RX-7 at one time, and that rotary, man, it just keeps going. It just whines.
It don't have the rotary has no low end torque.
Yeah,
it's not. You can't drive it like a V8. A rotary. I've had a couple, and the thing with a rotary is, number one, it's not like a piston motor where you could just replace the head. A rotary motor is like a loaf of bread. Either the whole thing is good or the whole thing is bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't overheat them 3 times. If you overheat a rotary 3 times, it's a lump of trash.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a wrap.
Number two, you got to let it scream, and a good way to get the most out of a V8, if you don't have a tack, is to shift when it stops pulling. You shift with if I'm driving a V8 and I want to get the most out of it, right when I feel it start to stop pulling, I'll shift. And that motor will stay healthy as long as it was built healthy. You can't do that with a rotary. A rotary will pull till it blows up.
Yep.
It doesn't
Yep.
stop pulling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta watch the tack on a rotary. But that is my favorite motor. A turbo rotary is my favorite motor because they first off, they wind so smooth. They're smooth because of the circular motion. They sound different. The power comes on different. It's a whole different animal, man. It's a whole
They
different animal.
outlawed them in I think in IMSA. Mazda came out with a race car for the IMSA circuit. I can't remember the full details, but I remember it was going to compete against in Le Mans and IMSA. And that car, when it drove by, you heard that whine, and I think it because they made some rule change, but I think that car beat it. It beat a bunch of big cars, and they tried to outlaw it. So I don't know if it was. I'm talking about. Remember
I Sure. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look it up right now because
because they had a rotary motor in that. I think it competed in Le Mans, and it was in one of those classes. I can't remember which one, but I know it was a runner. And then now they got guys making, what is it, 20B billet um
oh yeah,
rotary
yeah,
blocks.
that's a 3 rotor.
Yeah.
That's where you have like the common sizes are 12A and 13B. Uh, Let me go to all. Yeah, it was first banned at Le Mans, but IMSA
Yep.
and Grand Am eventually removed eligibility as well. Uh, uh,
Because Japan came in there and smashed, bro.
was killing them with them rotary motors. And I
Yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
another car that got banned was the 4-cylinder Capri motor.
Oh, the Cosworth?
Yes. Well, no, not the Cosworth.
Because didn't the Capri's, that's a Merkur, didn't they have a Cosworth motor?
Uh, you're talking about for Germany. No,
No, for the English version, didn't the Merkurs that came over from that, the ones that were running, didn't they have a British built? I thought it was a Cosworth racing motor, right?
I think you're talking about the Ford Cortina, the Merkur XR4Ti.
The Merkur XL4 Ti, but I thought it was some of the other. I thought the Capri 2 had a version with the Cosworth, and those motors were, they were pretty high revving, performance motors.
Well,
That
yeah, but this one, the one that got banned, wasn't that. This one was an old 4-cylinder Ford truck motor that was cast iron. Because it was cast iron, they would sleeve the blocks and forge the pistons and rods and shot peen them, and that's all they had to do to make that motor. They could push 600 horsepower through the motor, at turbocharged, and according to all of the rules that IMSA had set up, they could follow them rules and make 600 horsepower
but it
because
was.
because the 4-cylinder truck motors were so cheap.
So what they end up using to get them out of there? Because I know that motor's probably light too, because it's only 4 cylinders.
Well, it was relatively light. It was heavy for a 4-cylinder, but because it was cast iron, it could take so much punishment. And then when they sleeve it, they was running 30 pounds of boost through it.
Damn.
And it wouldn't break. And if it did break, we got 5 of these truck motors sitting here. They're truck motors.
Yeah.
We're not paying that was the problem. They weren't paying what everybody else was paying to make motors.
Oh, okay.
And they were kicking ass. They were the and I had a friend of mine had a 4-cylinder Capri with a turbo in it, and that thing would go, man. Them things could go. There was a dude in L.A. back in the day, Turbo Joe. He had a little white Pinto that thing was doing late 10s, early 11s in the late 70s and early 80s when everybody else was busting their ass to make, like, if you had a 9-second car at the street race, you towed it. There wasn't nobody driving a 9-second car all the way down to the street races because of what you had to do to a car to make it run 9 seconds. This dude had a late 10-second car that he drove there, bust people ass, and drove home. And it was unheard of. It was a old white Pinto, and that thing was it was fast, and it didn't look bad either. It had the little inky 92s on it with slicks. That thing, you didn't want none.
You know what else was that was a sleeper? I remember as a kid, my uncle had one. Was remember the Vega?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Have you ever heard of the Woolly Mammoth?
I don't think I heard of Woolly Mammoth. No.
Look up the Woolly Mammoth Vega. I'm gonna send you a link to it right now. Let me see. They might even have. There might be something on. Yep, Woolly Mammoth Vega. It pops right up. It's as a matter of fact, it was on it was on. They had it on Pinks. Remember the old race shows?
Oh yeah. I remember Pinks.
Yeah. Well, there's a very, very popular. It's a popular Vega. It's it looks like fur on the outside of it, and it's got it's tubbed out, and I always loved that car, man. I love the look of it. It's got bigs and littles on it, and it's got a big old Chevy motor in it, and it's strictly for drag race. It's strictly a drag race car, the Woolly Mammoth. And that Vega kicks ass, man. I would love. That's a car. See, there you go. That's a car I would build. I would get a Chevy Vega, LS it, and lose my damn mind. And I wouldn't make too like it would be worth it to do an Art Morrison chassis on it and have it pro touring, not just drag, to where it tracked on rails. Maybe put a nice controllable 500 horsepower under it, and like lay it out on the inside, perfect body work, nice wheels, and drive it. And I drive it to work.
That brings me to my next question, though. I mean, there's a lot of cars out there, and I know it's hard to pick just one. And for myself, I'm very particular about the cars I pick, and I know if I build something, I build it for myself. So I'm not really tripping off of selling it. But if you could say, your top three, you mentioned Vega, but I don't know if you really had, if that's in your actual top three, but top three cars that you would build for like just overall customization. I mean, what would be that top three? Would the Vega be in there? I mean, I'm not saying, what would be in that top three if you.
My top three, well, definitely, I would build again. My top three, I would build. I like little cars with big motors in them. Number one, number three, Porsche 928. To look like an S4 with an LS motor, probably done up by the guys at Renegade. Number two, the Porsche in Bad Boys 1. That black Porsche.
That's a 1996 turbo, which is worth like $250,000 now.
Exactly. I would want to build that, but again, I want to LS it. I'd find one and put a C2 body kit on it and LS it and build the shit out of it and have it space age SEMA ready built. I would want to do that. And if I had to say the number one car I would want to build uh, from scratch, we already talked about it. My Silver State Classic car, a Ferrari 400i, uh, done up with, I think a single turbo LS would be plenty. 700 horsepower turbo, Ferrari 400i built, and I don't really want it ultra caged. I like all my cars to look showroom, not so much race, but showroom, but sharp as hell, clean as hell, and fast as hell.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Lincoln because you've talked multiple times about a Lincoln Continental suicide doors with the top.
You stepped me to three. You stepped me to three, dude.
Oh, I didn't know the two Porsches is in the top three.
Those two Porsches are in my top three. But dude, for me, in an ideal situation, my goal is to have 30 cars that I drive once a month.
Yeah, and rotation.
And rotate them and drive all 30 of them all 30 days of the month. Or at least 15. I could rattle you off 15 cars I gotta have right now.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as far as I'm big on drives, man. I like doing certain drives. I've done some drives for scenic in California. I've done some drives for the adrenaline. Um, what are some of your favorite drives out there? I mean, for myself, I can name a couple right off the top of my head. Angeles Crest, um, going up there, checking out. I forgot there used to be a restaurant up there. I can't remember. This was on the tip of my tongue. I don't know if you've ever been there. There's a restaurant in Angeles Crest that everybody goes to, and they used to serve really good burgers and stuff up there. You got Angeles Crest. You got. I did a drive one time through. There's another one heading towards. What's that area heading towards Ventura? But it's up in like more in the hills. You know what I'm talking about?
Not the 395.
Well, like heading towards Ventura, but if you're going the opposite way, it's that weird little area, and they got like a lot of good driving roads up there. It's heading like you're heading towards Santa Clarita, but it's a little town over that hill. You know what I'm talking about? That little.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I forgot the name of it, man.
Not Latuna Canyon.
Not Latuna's cool too, but that road heading to Santa Clarita, there's a town over there. Man, I can't think of it, man. I'm gonna have to say it. We're gonna have to come back and talk about it. But that drive over there, because they got a lot of almost wooded areas, very country like roads over there. And then of course, I don't know if you ever done. Have you done? I'm quite sure you've done Topanga.
Yeah,
You've done Mulholland.
I've done. I love Mulholland. I gotta see where I put that. If I'd have known, I'll have it for you. Damn it, I could go get it now, but it'll take me a couple minutes. I got a picture of another one of my cars. I had a '79 280ZX that was cut to a convertible. It was black with a tan interior on deep dish Epsilons. And I used to love to carve the canyons with that car. But it was a unibody. And they chopped the top for looks. It looked great. But because it was unibody, no matter what I did to it, it would get loose eventually. Because the only way to do it was to take it back loose and weld the seams all along the unibody. And my guy told me even then, that's only going to buy you about 2 or 3 years because of the stress, the way the car was made. It needs a chassis.
Yeah, you would have had to go through and do like almost like a block the body off with like a brace kit and put like a built-in, like you said, built-in tube chassis or some 2x4 metal pieces plates in there to make it stiff.
Yeah, yeah, I had to plate it up, and uh, I sold that to put toward the money to build my TR7 because it was already built to be a convertible. Uh, but I used to love, dude. I remember when I first got that Z, it had a chip and it had exhaust on just a stock Z motor. And I'm going to date myself here. Um, this was towards the end of his career and just at the beginning of mine. I was opening up for Ray Charles in Caesar's Palace. And the this was in the summer. The winter before that, I had just done a ton of CHP Christmas parties, like I think 11 or 12 departments. And the summer before, the winter before that, I had done like maybe 5 or 6 of their Christmas parties doing stand up. And so I'm coming back to LA. The show was over on Thursday, and we were going to be dark Friday and Saturday because Ray had some prior commitments. So I was like, you know what? I'm feeling myself. I got a pocket full of money. I just had a bunch of fun. I just had them bring around this Z on Epps. I'm on my way back to LA. I'm gonna see what this thing gonna do, and I get it out on the 15. Boom, and the speedo was pegged, and it had pegged at 120, and this was maybe a minute and a half ago, and I was still going. I was doing a good 130. I'm rolling, and I come up over the hill, and in the dirt, in the middle of the night, I see the black fender and the white door. Oh my God! I just start breaking it down. I pull over, and of course the red light was on. Dude pulled over, jumped out of his car, and came up to my window. I don't know what the hell. Geoff Brown, dude, if you had not done our Christmas party, I'd have took your ass to jail. Slow down. I'll never forget his name. Sergeant Orozco, wherever you are, thank you. Thank you. I was a dude. Good, good, good. I took it easy all the way to the crib. But yeah, man, I've had some cars, bro. I've had a right-hand drive Z with Japanese plates on it. This car was a hot potato. It went between a bunch of us guys that we kept buying it, trying to get it registered here because it was so sexy. It had the triple side drafts on it. It was beautiful. It was like a dusty rose color, but nobody could keep it because America, it didn't have safety glass. It didn't have the right doors. It was all it was wherever that car is in now. If it's still in one piece, it's worth $100,000.
Yeah, it was a lot harder back then to get those cars, approved. I remember they were trying to get the 959 Porsche. They couldn't get that here legit, so they had to make like what was it, like a visiting exhibit visa, some type of
Yeah, it had the exhibit visa. Oh,
so you can only drive it so many miles to the
right,
location, and yeah.
right. Here was the other move that a lot of servicemen would do is they would disassemble the car entirely in Japan and ship it here as parts and then put it back together. A lot of cats were doing that to get around that, and then they got slick to that. So,
yeah.
And I just think one of the things that really disenchants me is the way legislation is cutting into our you really, and it saddens me because of where I started with cars. It used to be that we were starting with cars that people threw away. that it used to be that a regular working man with a regular job, just a decent job, on bus driver. I ain't super rich, but I'm gonna take my time, and over time, I'm gonna build this car. And you can start with uh, a piece of junk and put 20 grand into it, and you had a nice car. That's gone.
But you know, I was just listening to a guy in Japan talk about that same thing, and he's been in the game now. He's 50. He's been in the game 30 years, and he was saying 20 years ago when he was working on the 240s, and he was saying even back then he would take a 240, like back in, he said, going back into like the 80s, and they were already, kind of like considered little classics, a 72 240, 73, and he would put like 8 grand into them and have a really nice car. Now fast forward, and this guy was talking about the 240 he had now. That's got the, like you said, the Webers is all naturally aspirated. He said, the guy, well, how much would he sell this car for? He said, well, he's got so much development and work into the car. This car, as it sits, would be worth over $250,000, and he still wouldn't sell it.
Yeah.
And to build one, it would cost that, because just the parts, like this guy's doing, like, who would think that a car from 73, a Datsun 240, that somebody would want to spend the money to get, say, he was saying an intake made for it custom, that's not really adding a bunch of horsepower, but it just makes the car perform better. And that's like 6 grand, 8 grand for that to be, to be fabricated. So the parts game, for a lot of these guys saving these classic cars that we love, and, as far as it being the hobby, I tell those guys, don't look in the 60s, don't look in the 70s. You better start looking maybe for some of these 80s Camaros and Firebirds. That's what you need to start off with, if you want something, if you're not really trying to play with the big boys. But the big boy game now, like you talking about, any of the 70s Nissans, Datsuns, Mazdas, Chevelles, Corvettes, Firebirds,
I think Hertz part froze of this. If I'm still being recorded, what Hurt was talking about was how much a Datsun is worth now, and not to make a lot of horsepower. The cars weren't built to make a lot of horsepower. They were absolutely what the Japanese were good for was copying and making things lighter and cheaper. This is where the 240Z actually came from. Nissan bought a Ferrari and a BMW 2002. I believe it was a Ferrari Daytona and a BMW 2002, and reverse engineered those cars into the 240Z and the Datsun 510.
Visit BigHurt916.com to pick up a limited edition GTA poster signed by me for $10, or with your purchase of a Wig Splitter Porsche t-shirt, I'll throw in a free poster. If you're watching my channel, you know I'm a car guy. Go to BigHurt916.com and pick you up some products, man. Got that detail spray, baseball caps, beanies, tank tops, t-shirts. You know how we do it over here. Muscle Up Car Lifestyle.